froze.
All right, so today we're going to continue on with Genesis 31. Last time we ended with Jacob, right? That he has taken his wives and his children and all of his property and has gone back to the land of Canaan. But he doesn't tell his father-in-law. And so his father-in-law catches up with him, the Mount of Gilead, and he's really, really, really mad, right? It's not a good deal. Because Rachel, the younger daughter, stole Laban's gods because Laban was a polytheist. And I don't know if you could really describe him as a polytheist. I think he's probably what we would call a henotheist. He believes in one God that's overall, but then a lot of little gods underneath, right? Like his little images, his Tephilim, or the Pententes, his household gods which bring prosperity, right? They'd be like the sprites and the gnomes that you see in Ireland, right? In the in some of those superstitious areas in the world. Not to say Ireland is, well, maybe it is, but so here we see too that he does a thorough checking of Jacob's stuff, right? Starting with Jacob's tent, and how does he not find the gods, his gods?
Why doesn't he?
Yeah, why doesn't he?
Because Rachel is sitting on him.
Right. She was sitting on him, and going back to last Sunday with your favorite movie, and I'm looking at you in the back. What's your favorite movie? Yeah, the Lego Batman. What do? What does the Joker do? Yeah, he rubs his butt on everything, right? And not only that, but why doesn't Rachel get up to greet her dad? Right. It was that time of the month, right? And we see that in the ancient world, as well as in ancient Israel, menstruation was considered to be unclean. And so this is a very strong invective against polytheism, against other gods, because he wouldn't have believed that something so horrible could happen to his gods, right? And so here we see, once again, that there is only one true God, and Laban's idols are treated as nothing, right? Now, so if they're nothing, if they're not really gods, then why would Rachel have taken them? Well, one, to stick it to her dad could be, because they're not very happy with their father, because they said that he sold them like slaves, right, and didn't treat them as daughters. Second reason could be that with the images came property rights, and so this could be an idea of securing Jacob's ownership over all that is his. The third thing is that she actually felt bad for her dad and took away the gods, so that way he wouldn't be an idol worshiper anymore. So, there are a couple different options. We're not told in the scriptures why she took them, only that she does. So, we see here that he doesn't find what he's looking for, and now it's Jacob's time to get angry. Up until this point, Jacob has been very much on the DL, right? Very calm, even though he's been wronged in this way. And now we're going to see him explode. So, let's do verses 36 through 42. 36 through 42 of Genesis chapter 31.
Then Jacob became angry and upbraided Laban. Jacob said to Laban, "What is my offense? What is my sin that you have pursued me? Although you have fell through all my goods, what have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you, your ewes and your she-goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. Of my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was by day, the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years of your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac, had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. My God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked me last night.
All right, so here we see that Jacob says, okay, what have I done wrong? What's my sin against you? What of mine is yours? You've gone through all my stuff. If you have a complaint, set it before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, and we'll see whose it belongs to. Right? That I've served you for 20 years, and none of your ewes have miscarried. He hasn't eaten the rams of Laban's flock. Anything that was killed by wild beasts, he took the loss of it, rather than Laban. He was out there day and night, serving him for 14 years for both of his daughters, and then 6 years for his cattle. And it wasn't an easy life, right? During the day, the drought consumed him, and the frost by night. See, and that's the way it is actually over there. As hot as it gets during the day, it gets cold, and like really cold at night. So, yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a cakewalk for him these 20 years. And throughout all of it, Laban has been deceitful and changed his wages, right? Not a literal 10 times, but this is a number signifying completeness. That Laban has been such a sucker that, to someone who's supposed to be his own flesh and blood, right? And misused him and taken from him. And he says, unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, if he had not been with me, you would have sent me away with nothing. I would have served you for 20 years, for 2 decades, and I wouldn't have had a thing. And this is why God rebuked you last night. This is why God spoke to you in the dream. And that's why he calls God the fear of Isaac. It's not only Isaac, he's not only the object of Isaac's fear and sacred awe, but he's also really scary to Laban, right? Because what did he tell Laban? Don't say anything good or bad to Jacob, right? He threatens him because God is not a cute, cuddly Care Bear that you can just, and he's not a character in a Disney princess movie, right? Just as kind and gentle as God is to his people, he is also terrible and awe-inspiring to those who are against him. So, hear these words of Jacob, cut to the heart of Laban, and we see what they are going to do. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? So here you get the guy with the sour grapes, right? He's saying, oh, these daughters are my daughters. Well, no, they're not. Not anymore, right? They are now Jacob's wives. And not only that, but he sure didn't treat them very nice when he sold them into slavery, basically sold them as chattel to Jacob, right? So no, they aren't his daughters anymore. He has no more authority over them in that way. Okay? And once again, we see here that these children are my children. That is, these grandchildren are his. Well, no, he doesn't have authority over them. They belong under the authority of their parents. And these cattle are my cattle. No, they're not. Right? That was the whole deal with the wages, right? That all the speckled and ring-straked in them, that they all belong to Jacob. Whereas the solid ones, the white ones, belong to Laban. And all that thou seest is mine. Right? This is just a guy with sour grapes. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto these children which they have borne? Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. So, as we know, covenants are agreements. They can be done between people, human persons, or covenants can be with God. And this is an agreement. This is a contract. And it's going to be a witness between Laban and between Jacob. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. What should this remind us of? Where else does Jacob set up a pillar? Bethel, right? He sets up a pillar as a memorial at Bethel, right? This is what they did in the ancient world. That's why the Egyptians set up obelisks. This is why all over the ancient world they would set up giant stones, right, as memorials, as witnesses to remind people of the laws, or that this land belongs to so-and-so, right? This is why in Deuteronomy it says, you shall not remove the ancient landmark. Why? Because that land doesn't belong to you. It belongs to that particular family, and it has been given to them by God. That's why landmarks were way more important in the old days, because you didn't have GPS measuring, right? And you didn't have, and fence posts, aren't really all that long lasting, right? And so they would set up these witnesses as a contract, as a covenant, that this belongs to me or to you, okay? Because it's not like you can go down in the ancient world to the courthouse and get a plat book, right? Or to look up a contract, because frankly most people couldn't read, right? So they're going to make up they're going to start a covenant here. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones, and they took stones and made an heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. So that's what they do. They all took stones, piled them up, and then they ate a sacrificial meal, a meal of joy and of fellowship. And Laban called it Jegar Shahaduatha, but Jacob called it Gilead. Now this is important, because here we see that what Laban calls this, why they call it by different names, is actually two different languages. Okay? Jegar Sahaduatha is Chaldean or Babylonian. Okay? And Gilead is actually Hebrew. Okay? So that's kind of what, the difference is here. So, the native country of the patriarchs, they spoke Aramean or Chaldean, and Hebrew was what Jacob spoke. So we could probably conclude that Abraham's family first acquired Hebrew in Canaan from the Canaanites. Okay? So we actually see here that they're speaking two different languages. And when Jacob was there, he probably spoke Aramaic, or Aramean, or Chaldean, right? But now he's going back home to the promised land, and so he once again begins speaking Hebrew, okay?
So is that Aramaic kind of the same as what some of them speak there today, or not?
Yeah, it's kind of evolved as languages do over the years. The direct descendant of like Aramaic today would be what is called Syriac. And you can actually get, there's still some Syriac Christians around that still read an Aramaic version of the scriptures called the Peshitta. And, but many of them have been destroyed, especially in 1914 by the Turks during the genocide that went on there that most people don't hear about. The Turkish people just wiped them out. But yeah, that's that. Yeah, so we see here that there's a different language for each one of them. And this is why, we can thank God that Jesus was born at a time when there was one common language that was spread over the whole empire, right? That Koine Greek was the trading language and the lingua franca of the empire. That way you could go anywhere and preach in Greek and people would understand you. Okay? This is why when it says that Jesus was born at the right time, he was born at a time of peace. He was born at a time of prosperity. He was born at a time when all the roads connected the empire together. He was born at a time when Greek, which had been spread by Alexander the Great, permeated this huge region from North Africa all the way to Germany, all the way to the middle of England, and all the way into Syria. Okay? And this one language allowed the gospel to be spread to all these people, right? Where that would not have been possible at this time in biblical history. So we see too that God does things, everything he does is right and good. He does it exactly when it's right. Same thing with the birth of Jesus and with all that kind of stuff. So, they called it Jagar Shahadutha and Gilead. And Laban said, "This heap is a witness between me and thee this day." Therefore was the name of it Gilead. Both of those names mean witness. Okay? That this pile of stones is a witness between them. And Mitzpah, for he said, "The Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent from one another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee." So sometimes you'll see that kind of stuff on lockets, right? These words for friends. This is not a friendly thing, right? This is like, God's going to watch you, and if you screw with my daughters, he's the one who's going to judge even if I'm not there. That's really what this is saying, right? That if you don't take care of my daughters, if you don't take care of my grandchildren, I may not be there, but the Lord is there. And he's the one who's going to judge. So yeah, next time you're thinking about giving a gift to somebody, probably stay away from that. Unless you're really kind of mad at them. Then it'd be kind of funny. You know what I'm saying? So,
In a way, I'm wondering why Jacob would even want to do this kind of stuff after all of this stuff. The prior 20 years, all the stuff that's been done to him by Laban.
yeah, because how do you know if he's going to be, But this one is sworn on the name of the Lord. And that's something that even Laban isn't going to break. Especially, I think he can have confidence because God threatened Laban, And so, even though Laban is kind of a jerk and a trickster and a shyster, God's got his number now, right? And so even if he won't do this covenant out of love, he's going to do it out of fear. Which is why I think that Jacob continues to refer to God not as El Shaddai, the mighty one, or the all-sustaining one, but he refers to him as the fear of Isaac. Right? Because not only is God the object of Isaac's fear and his awe, but he's also the subject which inspires fear, as he did to Laban. So, there's something to be said about the fear of God, right? Our God is a consuming fire. He's not somebody you want to cuddle with. Okay? He's a great guy. Don't get me wrong, but you can't put him in a box. Well, he put himself in a box, I guess. In the the manger. So, But yeah, we can't put him in a box, right? We can't control him. Like C.S. Lewis says in the Chronicles of Narnia, he's not a tame lion, but he's good, right? So, God should inspire fear, right? Because if you're not afraid of him, then who are you afraid of? Everybody else, right? You'll be afraid of the world. You'll be afraid of, but if you truly fear God, then nobody's going to fear you, right? That's why Jesus says, don't be afraid of those who can kill the body. Be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell, right? So, and Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, behold this pillar, which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. So basically, it's like, this is the boundary line. Don't come over here to me, and I won't come over there to you, right? So I guess that's one good way of, keeping your in-laws in check, but
Is that true forgiveness?
What?
Is that true forgiveness?
For Laban? I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe Laban repented, but I think this is a way for them to keep the other in check, right? Because they both feel wronged, and this way Laban is promising not to come over and take and steal the things that are Jacob's, and Jacob isn't going to come cause more problems for his father-in-law, right? So
Maybe Laban was a little concerned because for 20 years he pulled a lot of fast ones on Jacob, and Jacob still prospered.
right.
So maybe Laban thought, you know what, I can't beat this guy. Maybe my best bet is to keep him out of here.
Right. And that's the way shysters usually are, because they'll pull fast ones on other people, but they're always afraid of getting fast ones pulled on them. Because it's true, there is no honor among thieves. Let's be honest here. It's not like Jacob is a poster child of the suffering servant, right? He also responded in kind to Laban. So, he's not exactly...
He's not innocent.
Yeah, he's not innocent. He's not the favorite son-in-law either.
Didn't he purposely breed the cattle and goats so that they would be spotted?
Yep, so they'd be spotted and ring-streaked, and yeah, exactly. So it's not a very. See, like I said, if you think you have problems with your own family, just go read the Bible, because you haven't ever had to set up a boundary line and say, You don't come into my state and I won't go into yours. Yet, I don't know what most of your family relationships are like, but, I can imagine it hasn't gotten to that point yet. So, yes. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us, and Jacob swear by the fear of his father Isaac. See, and once again, this is why I don't think Laban is very repentant, because he tries to out pious Jacob, right? Because he's like, well, I'm not going to swear by the name of the Lord. I'm going to swear by the name of the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father, right? Going back, and Isaac's like, whatevs. You're afraid of God, so I'm going to swear by the fear of my father Isaac, right? So, but that's the way that usually people go. It's kind of like they always tell you at seminary, be suspect of the first people who are really nice to you when you come to a new, because most of the time they want something, which,
That's why I stood in the back of the line.
right, that's why. But yeah, I mean, you see this too. I mean, oftentimes in life, the people who are the nicest or that sort of thing, it's not because they're real nice, they're just trying to, that's why salesmen are so good, right? Because they're just real nice people, and they kind of get you talked into something, and then, so, but yeah, so, here we see too that a lot of people, that's why like excessive piety is a great thing. But sometimes I think people, and here's a great deal about it. Facebook. Share this meme to show you love Jesus. Or the one where Jesus and the devil are arm wrestling. Oh, it's ridiculous. But that's the thing. The people who share all these things on Facebook, right? But then, which is fine.
You never see him in church.
But then you never see them in church, right? So, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Laban is doing here, right? He treated his son-in-law like dung. He treated his daughters like dung. Jacob made him rich, and then he tried to do a runaround on him again, and that failed, right? So all of these things, what do they say? Does that point to a very good faith or a very bad faith? And then he runs him down like he's a criminal, right? These things that he's done don't exactly point to, these things that he's done don't exactly point to a living faith, right? Because faith without works is dead, right? Now, does that mean that we struggle with these things? Of course we do. We struggle with doing what's right, don't we? But Laban, by not only his attitudes, but also by his actions, has shown himself not to be, very trustworthy, right? And so he can say all the words that he wants. He can pray all the prayers that he wants. And he can, as Richard II says, and thus I clothe my naked villainy in old odd ends, stolen forth from holy writ, that I may seem a saint when most I play the devil. Okay? But when you're a Christian, the heart, the mouth, and the hand should all agree, right? Shouldn't just say something, come to church on Sunday, and then go and live terribly the rest of the week, right? That's not the way this works, right? It's like your favorite song, your favorite hymn. Everybody wants to go to heaven. Nobody wants to go now. So what does he do? Throws an extra 20 in the plate for everything he did last night. And then he throws an extra 10 in there for everything he's going to do today. Right? Is that faith? No, that's not faith. That's ridiculous, right? So yeah, it's that's why, I mean, and that's part of the thing too. But then people go way too far to the other end and say, well, I'm not going to come to church because of all the hypocrites. Well, do you avoid the gym because of all the fat people? Or the hospital for all the sick people? Right? So, but yeah, so the only people who are hypocrites are those who say things. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Hypocrites are those who pretend to be something that they're not, right? And that's the great thing about Lutheranism, right? What do we actually say about ourselves? Yeah, or miserable sinners. Confess unto thee all my sins and iniquities with which I have ever offended thee, right? And justly deserve thy temporal and eternal punishment. That's actually what we say, right? So do we actually think we're holier than thou? No. We actually say the opposite, right? So, anyways. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, called his brethren to eat bread. They did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. So they have a party, right? Like a farewell party. But it's probably more of like don't let the door hit you on the way out kind of party. And early in the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them, and Laban departed and returned unto his place. So here we see that there's not going to be any more traveling back to Haran. There's not going to be that back and forth as there was in the days of Abraham or of Isaac, where Abraham sent his servant to find a wife for Isaac, and Jacob went back to to find wives there. That's not going to happen anymore, right? This is it. This is a break in the family, right? Now Jacob and his will be strictly in the land of Canaan until they have to go to Egypt during the days of Joseph. So we finally see a break in the family, and now we never hear anything more about Abraham's relatives, right? More than likely they completely fall away from the true faith after this point. So, which is sad because they were already heterodox at this point anyways, with their household gods and, So, so now we see that God has protected Jacob. God sent a dream to Laban and threatened. So